we spoke about these trendy watches and our, taste and everything. And our taste tends to be, more on the vintage side, more on the old side. Now let's talk a little bit about modern watchmaking. Let's talk about today's, watches and watch brands and everything and how they operate. I wrote a very long question that is pretty philosophical, to be honest. I wrote, what's old when everything is an homage, and what's new when everything is new? And that is something that you spoke about when you were speaking about Omega and their releases. The first part of the question, what's old when everything is an homage? We can speak about this in the, when we're speaking about, for example, the latest Polo from Piaget, the round one, or the, Zenith, doing their homage watches and everything, or who else, like the Omega too, or other brands of the same nature. But what do you think about that? What's old when everything is an homage?
I mean, it's a good question. I think that it's very closely related to what we were just discussing earlier about inherited wealth. I mean, when brands, executives, and designers inherit these designs and then do nothing really with them to create anything new or interesting, you lose that spark of competition. You lose that admiration, because I know that you didn't really work very hard at all to create this. This is an achievement of past. Now, it's not to say that you shouldn't make it anymore, but my admiration for you as a designer does, weather by the day, right? I mean, Cartier, I don't look at the Cartier collection, the designers at Cartier, with as much admiration as I do the designers of old, right? I mean, I don't think that, I would not say that right now Cartier is a brilliant designer of watches. I would say they were a brilliant designer of watches. Those are two very different things. And it's the same thing. Look at Piaget. I mean, Piaget is totally lost. They have no sense of identity. I mean, Piaget has no idea who they are, where they're going, or frankly, I think, where they've been. I mean, Piaget is the sort of brand that can, if we're going to liken it to a human being, right? Piaget is the sort of grandson that, like, he knows, he kind of knows where his grandpa's from, and he kind of knows what he did, and, they remembers that they went fishing sometimes, but he has no idea, right, who he was and what he stood for and the trials that he went through and, all these things. No idea. Piaget's just like, let's just make that watch that we used to and let's change it a little. And I don't know. And that sounds good, right? Terrible. Yeah. Right. So meanwhile, Piaget as a brand was, for lack of a better, right, it was essentially the big, dick on the table saying, I'm the richest guy in the room. I'm the most gaudy guy in the room. Or tasteful under the guise of, I'm the guy. I have gold bullion on my wrist. You don't wear this watch unless you've already had multiple day dates. The day date is for the new guy. I'm not the new guy. I'm an international traveler. I am a man of importance. I am a jet set. I am it. Yeah. It was a huge, and they were rare. It was a huge, power play move. Now Piaget doesn't represent that at all. Piaget makes budget aquanauts. Yeah. I mean, the Piaget of old. And I like the Polo, the new one. I mean, as a watch, meaning the Aquanaut ripoff, because it represents value, but it's certainly not representative of Piaget brand ethos, right? If we can agree that what I just said was true, that Piaget represented essentially the most senior leader, the richest of the executives, the most cultured, the most jet set, the guy, right? The guy doesn't copy from somebody else. Exactly. He doesn't. Right. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, it would be the same thing as Loro Piana today, which is a brand that is ripped off every day, ripping off from someone else. They wouldn't do it. It does not fit in with their brand ethos. It does not. That's it. And these brands have totally lost sight of it. I think unless they are stealing from their past, they are not doing much. I do think, however, the Code 1159 is a good example of the opposite. Right? I know it's not a perfect watch. I know it's the people don't like it as much as they like the Royal Oak, but that's not the point. The Code 1159 from Audemars Piguet is I think a really good demonstration that AP understands their kind of their perspective, their design perspective, right? Industrial but elegant, obviously seen through finishing and all these surfaces and all these different things. And they get it, and then they translated that perspective into what is a modern semi-casual dress watch, right? That made sense, right? That made sense. Whether you like the watch or not, I think it was a really great demonstration that the people at Audemars Piguet understand how to speak in their own language, as opposed to just sort of reiterate things that their grandparents used to say, right? I mean, it's the difference between knowing an old Italian saying and speaking Italian, right? These are different things, right? I mean, you can kind of reiterate or sort of mumble through things you've heard 1,000 times, but are you fluent? Are you fluent in your own brand language? Audemars Piguet isn't a perfect brand; they're not.
Yes.
But the Code 1159 was a good demonstration that they are in fact fluent. Other brands, Piaget, not fluent at all. Not fluent at all.
Yeah, we are being bombarded. We are getting bombarded by very boring releases, to be honest. And you speaking about AP really makes a lot of sense, because that was literally my next question. I was gonna talk about the boring releases from all these watch brands, to be honest, and how we are there's a public fatigue from all these watches that all look the same. I mean, everything has a black dial nowadays, or a green one if you're edgy. But I wanted to talk about AP, and I wanted to talk about how there's a lack of creativity in their brand. I think AP is struggling to mature from the Royal Oak. I think they have been making too many Royal Oaks. And I don't know if you agree with this or not, because the latest release from them were the 35 millimeter Royal Oaks, and like rose gold and yellow gold, and I don't know if it was like white gold or steel. I don't really remember, but white gold, right? And they were like plated with with diamonds and everything. I don't know how you see that, but if I am allowed to say my opinion in this interview and not, I think they're pretty fucking boring. And I think that's my problem with AP, is that everything's the Royal Oak. We're not moving on from the Royal Oak. The code what was it called? 1159, right?
1159
was fantastic. It was great. I fucking loved the watches, but I mean that was a once in a lifetime thing. We're not seeing that much diversity.
I understand where you're coming from, and I agree to it. I agree on a level. I mean, I think that Audemars Piguet has beaten up the Royal Oak too much. I think the Royal Oak is a sacred watch. I think it's a perfect watch, and I mean, to put it in comparison, Patek Philippe has been far more careful and conservative with their Nautilus than Audemars Piguet has been with their Royal Oak.
Yes.
Right? Audemars Piguet has essentially pimped out the Royal Oak too much.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, it's terrible. I mean, it's, yeah, I agree with you. Right? That being said, I think that the 1159 is a more interesting, piece or collection than almost any other brand has come up with in the last decade or so. I mean, what collection, not watch, what collection has been as, intelligent and thought through? Not so many. I mean, I don't put you on the spot because I can't think of one at the moment either. I'm sure there are others that are fantastic, but I'm talking about on this really high-end, right, level. I mean, the Overseas is a great collection, but it's not brilliant, right? I mean, it's just an evolution of the pre-existing collection. And I also don't think it's perfect either. No. I think it's too thick, right? And which is weird because they also make it in ultra-thin, which is perfect, but it's in white gold, and they don't make them anymore. So it doesn't make any sense either, right? I mean, we can do this the right way, but we choose to do it the wrong way.
Exactly.
Weird thing to do. Yeah. So I look at these brands and I don't really see anything, brilliant happening. I mean, some of the Patek annual calendars, be it Chrono, which I think is particularly good, or Moon Phase, I forget those references. Some of those watches are really interesting. Those are new designs. I mean, they're not new as in a couple of years ago, but they're, within the last decade or so. Yeah. And they continue to innovate with color. Innovate's maybe a strong word, but they continue to be divergent and push the boundaries of color. Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah. They're rather expensive, of course, but that's neither here nor there. I like that. I like that Patek went with this color palette lately with this, blues with the precious metal. I think that was smart. But that's not inventing a new watch, right? Putting a denim strap on something, even if I like it, doesn't mean it's new. That is not a new collection. It's not as brilliant and shouldn't deserve as much acclaim. Audemars Piguet took a big risk. What confuses me about AP, I suppose, is I don't understand how the same bright minds that came up with the 1159 also were behind some of these collaborations, like with what's his name, Travis Scott, right? Scott. That's funny, right? I mean, I know that like even great composers, right, produce mediocre things on the journey to producing brilliance. I can understand that, but some things just do seem out of character, right? I mean, like, so who are you? That's, and I guess you're just trying to be something to everyone, and that's not very profound and powerful, is it?
No.
That's kind of weak and beggish, right? It's begging. It seems like you're begging for love. And that's not. It doesn't inspire a lot of confidence or hope, Yeah,
it's like the saying that goes like, if you believe in everything, you believe in nothing. I think it's the same thing. If you're everybody's friend, you're nobody's friend.
Exactly.
I think that's the case here.
You were neither hot nor cold. You were lukewarm. So
exactly. You're neither a classy brand, that has its value, and you're not a trendy one either. It's kind of It's kind of a weird spot to be in. You are answering my questions before I asked them, because I was going to, because my next question was about influencer marketing. Yeah, and I wanted to ask about that. What do you think about that? I'm going to put my finger on some brands, and I want to discuss this from the what's good and what's tacky perspective, right? Because if we're talking about the Travis Scott collaboration, it's the tackiest thing you can see. But when we're talking about the John Mayer one, not that's significant, And when we're and for example with Breitling, the collab with what is she called? Beckham's wife?
Beckham. Sporty Spice. Or Posh Spice. What
do you think about that?
It's an interesting subject. So number one, I would put influencer marketing in a different category than those, because while those are influencers, of course, those people are large enough to be corporations in and of themselves. Right? These people are huge, right? Brands. They're brands. So there's a way to activate and there's a way not to, and the product needs to be intelligent, I think, because you're in a luxury space, so people deserve to demand quite a bit out of you, right? So I think that AP messed up with Travis Scott. They did great with John Mayer. We can agree there. Yeah. I think that the Victoria Beckham collab was, somewhat middle of the road, and I didn't particularly care for it. It was somewhere between Travis Scott and John Mayer. I just didn't really care. Yeah. And that was just really more for awareness. But then after the product design, then it becomes, brand activation. I mean, how do you, in the contract, right? Or who's planning that social activation? John Mayer's activation was fantastic. Not only did he wear the watch on stage and it was on these big screens, but he also did interviews, both, in person in a large audience, right, among the great collectors, but then with material good, but then also did it on social media with Esquire. I mean, that was a perfect activation, I would say. The Travis Scott was a terrible activation because he's illiterate. So how can an illiterate person essentially be an intelligent brand ambassador for a luxury product? Again, luxury products demand, I think, eventually complicated, not products that are perceived to be luxury, right? Like, like Louis Vuitton luxury is different than Audemars Piguet luxury, right? Yes. There isn't very much to talk about for a brand ambassador, for Louis Vuitton, right? It's much different, right? Whereas if you're going to sit down and be a brand ambassador for something that is incredibly complex, be it like a perpetual calendar watch, or be it from one of the world's greatest brands, or be it from, let's say in the wine world, which would have immediately rejected this Travis Scott collaboration, right? This is a world that is very, kind of predicated upon intelligence and refinement and literacy. I mean, of course, there's a lot of phonies in there too, of course, but the standard is rather high, right? The standard's rather high. In the wine world, right, they elevate intelligence. They take nobodies and make them somebodies based off of their intelligence. In this world, in watches, we take somebodies and try to make them ambassadors, right? It's the other way around, right? I mean, it's the other way around. So it's sort of tough.
It shouldn't be like this. It's not be like this. I mean, it's
human nature, right?
I mean,
it's human nature. It's human nature. It's human nature. We love to elevate, right? I mean, we just, people that don't deserve, right? I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing, So that's what I think. Now, going on to more influencer marketing, I'm interested to see how these smaller, still huge, but not John Mayer level influencers, social media influencers. I'm interested to see how they get into this watch game. I think that the watch industry is very Swiss. It's very conservative. I mean, there's a lot of red tape. Yeah. There are large ships, and large ships take a long time to turn. So I'm interested to see how they basically activate that whole world of opportunity. I don't know the answer to that question, and in time we will tell. I think that LVMH as a conglomerate will be the conglomerate that adapts to that world quickest. They're just used to it. They know that world. I don't think that Swatch does, and I don't think that Richemont does. I think that LVMH will be. I mean, LVMH is now a partner in Richemont as well as of last week. So who knows? Yeah. They'll own everything by the time that you and I die. Yeah. So it's all very interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the LVMH thing is making me. Is scaring me, to be honest, because I don't want to see JLC become the next Tag Heuer, to be honest. I'm very scared from that because I'm a big fan of Jaeger-LeCoultre. It gives me fucking nightmares to think about Jaeger-LeCoultre in a LVMH world. It's kind of tacky to me. It's scary.
But to be fair, I mean, LVMH has done a pretty good job with their watch holdings. They've done pretty well with Zenith. They're now reviving Gerald Genta, the brand. They collaborated with Akrivia. They're bringing back Daniel Roth. Bulgari is under LVMH. Don't forget, and Bulgari has done very well. I'm actually fairly optimistic now on a larger level, and what it means that everything in the world is owned by a person. That's a crazy thing, right? Yeah. Of course, but on a product level. So far, they've done a pretty good job. I mean, I think they've done everything that they did wrong with Tag, I think that they've since begun to correct. So even though I think that they kind of killed Tag, I think that they've recognized it and started to, really do quite a good job as well. Again, they're the ones that were responsible for quite a bit of its demise, but I think they're headed back in a positive direction.
Yeah. Well, let's not just talk about the bad things of the watch industry. I have a question. What's an incredibly underrated company to you? Like, what is something that you think is extremely underrated for a brand?
That's a good question. There are so many. I don't really think about underrated brands as much as I think about underrated watches, right? I still think, like you just brought up JLC, I think that their, Polaris Diver, particularly in green at $11,100, I think is a fantastic dive watch. That's a perfect sports watch in my view. It's comfortable. It comes from a heritage manufacturer. The detailing on the dial is, head and shoulders above what you're getting from other brands at that same price point. The vignette, the texture, the sort of lacquer, everything is fantastic. So I think that's a great watch. Some of the reversos, particularly in precious metal, the chronograph, wildly. I was going to say underrated, but it's actually been rated, quite well. So, but still a surprise winner. I'm a big fan of Gerald Charles, which is the last brand of Gerald Genta. I have one. I have a Maestro skeleton. Fantastic watch. Very low production. So I don't think it will take very long. I don't think much needs to happen for that brand to be significant for their own levels of success. I don't think that'll ever be a mass market brand, but I think that's an underrated brand. There are pre-owned Patek Philippe from the last 20 years that represent a ton of value in the secondary market. Between $15,000 to $30,000, you can get yourself some remarkable pieces. We're not even going vintage. If you want modern proportions, there's so much on the market. And prices obviously have come down, right? But still, there's so much out there. Yeah, drastically. Yeah, Breguet. Fantastic brand that would actually do much better as an independent. Swatch does a very bad job running that company. Yes, Breguet is a fucking incredible watch.
Exactly, I was just saying that.
Yeah. So there are plenty of fantastic watches on the market. Fantastic stuff. So there's never a shortage of things to be excited about in the watch industry. Never. Now, it can be disheartening because it's very hard to get things if you're following the trends. But if you're not, if you're thinking for yourself, you can do rather well.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, we don't all have to have a fucking AP or, a Bulgari. I mean, you can get a Breguet, as you said, or you can get I don't know, a vintage Reverso that is like what now, that goes for like 10K, 8, in the secondary.
Less.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, you can get depending on the size and the color or whatever. I mean, you can get a great Reverso, probably $6,000. I mean, it's fantastic. And it used to be less. It used to be 4, 3. I mean, and when I say used to, I'm going back 3 years. I'm not going back 10. So. There's a lot out there that's still, interesting and special. And I always encourage people, look at precious metal as well. Precious metal, I think, is wildly underrated. I think it's wildly underrated. I think that steel has just been appreciated so much that it's caught up so close to precious that now you look at it and you're like, wait, I think I'm being sold a bag of tricks here. Why am I so fixated on owning this watch in steel at X when I can own it in yellow or white gold for just a little bit more? And oftentimes it is just a little bit. I mean, I have a white gold Reverso in my collection that I actually haven't worn in a little while, and I have to wear it, but I wear it to meetings a lot, and I love it. And I think I paid like $8,000 for a white gold Reverso with a duo with gray and salmon. I mean, it's a perfect watch. It's perfect. It just, the value was so obvious, and people need to be looking at that stuff.
Yeah. Is it fair to say that JLC is the brand that you have a soft spot for?
I do. I mean, I Lang & Zona as well. Their prices have gone up quite a bit, but I love Lang & Zona. I love a Lange 1. I love a Datograph. I mean, an 1815 chronograph. That was the watch that I always dreamed of and wanted. An 1815 chrono. I don't own one, but maybe one day. But another great brand. Of course, just the lore and legend of Patek Philippe will never fade, right? There's just something about owning a Patek that is, just so, it is to admit that we are all susceptible to marketing, right? I mean, that's for sure, right? Because there are better watches out there. But yeah, there's so much out there. So I do have a positive message for new collectors and people that are getting into it that might otherwise be disheartened because it's hard to get a Rolex. There's so much out there.
That's true. I was gonna ask you that at the end of the interview, but you just keep being, my mentor and everything. Okay, let me continue. We were talking about the soft spot and the ones that we have a soft spot for. There's a brand that is not alive anymore. They unalived it, and which I love, and I'm the biggest fan of. It's Universal Genève, and I wish and I pray every night that they revive the brand. I really want that to happen.
Well, yeah, I mean it is. Right, Breitling bought them just last year or something. So they will be reviving them for sure. I
really hope something happens. I was expecting something to a big release party and everything in this year's Watches and Wonders, but that didn't happen.
It takes time.
Yeah,
I think it takes a lot of time, and I think it takes a lot of time. They're going to develop in movements. It could be another 4 or 5 years. Probably more like in the world of 3 years, but it could be 5.
Yeah. I just hope it happens. I really just hope so.
It will.
I mean, they have incredible history, incredible watches, incredible pieces. I mean, that's the Gerald Genta, company.
The original, right? He was a kid.
Yeah, he was a kid. That's the brand he kind of built in his 20s, and that's pretty fucking impressive. You cannot mention Gerald Genta without saying Universal Genève and the pole router. That's just, that's just impossible.
That's
right.
Right.
Let me come back to the LVMH and Richemont situation. Do you think LVMH is gonna acquire Richemont, or do you think is
in its entirety? I mean, if it makes sense for them, I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will.
And what do you think?
It would not be a limit. What do I mean, there's no way for. They have an insatiable, desire to own everything. So I don't think it'll ever stop. I think they'll buy Patek. I think they'll buy Patek within the next, I've said 10 years. So nothing's off the table.
I really don't want to be alive in a world where Patek is the LVMH. I really do not want to be alive at that time.
But
yeah, there's a catch.
Do we think that if they bought Patek, it would make Patek worse? Do we believe that they would make it worse?
No,
I don't know.
There's no proof to back it.
So it's a weird feeling, only on just like a macro level. That again, everything is owned by one family. I mean, that's a scary thing. But other than that, I mean, on a product level, I don't think product would suffer. I don't think they'd make it more available. I don't think they'd make it more available. I think that I think they would continue to improve the brand. Probably. I don't know. I don't know the answer, right? But I think that they'll continue to buy everything. I think they'll continue to buy everything.
I mean, we cannot predict, but we can analyze past moves and like the things that they've done before. I know that LVMH and Arnault are very obsessed with the idea of jewelry and jewelry companies. They've been trying to acquire Cartier for God knows how
long. For a long time.
Yeah. And they have mutual respect. Both Arnault and the CEO or the chief of Cartier. But I'm really afraid of making Patek watches more on the jewelry side. I mean, they're doing that already with some of their women's lines, but
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that would happen. I don't know. I don't know if that would happen. I mean, would they really change the collection, so much? I think that they would understand slow paced improvement. I think they would understand that because they know that there would be an immediate backlash and everything. So I think that they would have a pretty solid, what is essentially a rollout plan to quell all of those worries immediately. Yeah. I think that they would. It would be really slow and really just reliable and safe. They don't want to damage the brand value of something they're about to buy, or anything they're buying, right?
Exactly.
So it's not in their best interest,
Especially
So to own a crown jewel of this industry, right? Why would you want to jeopardize that, right? I mean,
sure.
They're brilliant. I mean, it's a brilliant company. It's a brilliant company.
Yes.
And I think that they have reverence for watches. I think that they understand. I don't think that they're going to run a watch brand the way that they run Louis Vuitton, right? Which is mass market luxury, which is, oftentimes shoddy quality, which has, really like low average income levels of buyers, right? I think it's
don't make
totally
affordable. Please don't.
I don't think that would ever happen.
We don't want a world where Patek is available to everybody. Please don't. I would love to keep,
Right.
I would love for Patek to be the unattainable, watch company or watch brand, for it to be attainable to everybody, because that's that's how Patek is. That's who Patek is. They're unattainable.
It's their DNA.
They're hard to get. Yeah. They're slow. They're a family brand.
Yeah.
They have If you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like,
well, they just purchased. I mean, a Parisian, icon of a restaurant, Chez La Louis as well. I mean, we don't need to talk about it. It's too much length, but it's amazing. It's amazing what they're doing. I certainly sit in awe of everything. Everything, but a lot of the news that I see about them and how they're moving and positioning, I think is really, really interesting. So, God bless them. Again, does it mean that the apocalypse is coming? Probably. Yeah, probably. Right. But, listen, it's still fascinating.
Yeah. All that we can do about it is talk about it and analyze,
Right. There's nothing. Right. Exactly. There's nothing we can do about it. Right. I mean, I don't think, as a small example, the service at that restaurant is awful. And it's part of the charm. The food is great. The service is awful. There's something very Patek about that too. I mean, it's more dramatic at La Louis than it is at Patek. Patek is, it's not mean, but it's the same principle, right? And I think that LVMH understands that extremely well. They understand the look and the feel of not just the product but the experience, and I don't think they'll screw with it. I'm
not going to take too much of your time. We've spent a lot of time talking about these things and having a beautiful conversation. I have just two last questions, and they're going to be very very simple. First of all, what is that beauty on your wrist? Can we talk about that, please?
Yeah, this is my Piaget Polo. I bought this maybe 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. I bought it basically unworn with original box and paperwork and everything, and all links, and I love it. I wear it. I really, really love this watch. It's probably my most obnoxious watch, maybe even my ugliest watch. It might even be an ugly watch, but I think it looks great, and I really love it.
It's fantastic. It is fun.
Yeah.
It's literally on my, like the top spot of the things that I want to buy. Like, once I make them, enough money, the first watch that I'm going to buy is a Piaget Polo. Like, that's...
Yeah. They're great. I mean,
these days?
They're so heavy. They're probably, I don't know. I mean, I haven't bought one in a couple of months, but, probably over $13,000. I mean, they've gone, I paid like $7,500 for mine.
Really?
And it was new old stock. Yeah. I bought mine right before it blew up. Literally weeks, I kind of saw it was happening and I said, screw this. I'm just going to buy the watch and that's it. I'm going to buy the watch. And that was it.
I mean, it's worth it. It's fucking beautiful.
I love it.
Yeah. It suits you. You know what I like about how you style it is that you put it on with things that do not match the aesthetic. Like one would think that you would put it with a suit, but then you put it with some shorts, some flag.
Yeah, I'm wearing a bathing suit and sneakers, and I'm wearing a knit polo, and that's it. I think it's a cool look.
Fuck yeah, man! It's the nouveau riche type of aesthetic. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
it's not old money because we're very tired of that.
No. It's definitely not. It's definitely
really
not.
Don't like that. Yeah, and okay. Last question to not take too much of your time. You kind of answered this before. And what advice would you give to new watch enthusiasts or watch collectors? What do you think you can say to these people?
I mean, as always, it's do as much research as you possibly can, and then when you're ready to buy, don't be cheap. Right? That's the best advice. I mean, when you're ready to buy the thing that that you want, buy the right example, pay the premium. Don't let the watch get away if it's vintage, right? Or whatever. That's it. That's the best. And by the way, when you finally buy the watch, go to dinner. Go take your friend to dinner, and you have to pay, by the way, because if you're going out to celebrate the fact you just bought a luxury watch, pick up the fucking check, okay? Pick up a fucking check for a change. You know what I mean? Like that's you got to do that. That's what you got to do. Whether it's your friend or your dad or your mom or both or whatever it may be, your girlfriend, it doesn't matter, but celebrate it, and that will be the first memory you have with that thing, and make it a beautiful occasion. Make it a beautiful occasion.
Well, that was beautiful. That was fantastic. Thank you very much for everything, for the time, for answering the questions, for being here, for illuminating us with more your knowledge and your presence and personality and everything. I'm deeply in love with everything that you are, and I'm unapologetically fangirling about Christian Zeron and everything that comes with it. I'm openly a fangirl, so.
No, there's nothing fangirly about holding certain people in high esteem, and I think that all men that have any good sense do that. I know I certainly do it, and I revere the people who have had any influence on me. I mean, truly. So I do the same thing. Every single day. So right, if it's what's the old expression, right? I mean, we shouldn't. We're standing on the shoulders of giants, and we think we're flying. Don't do that, right? Yeah. I mean, don't do that, right? I mean, it's all good, man, and I'm glad I could help you in any way possible, and it's been a pleasure talking to you, and I hope that your audience enjoys this, and please know that I'm at your disposal whenever I can be. All right, so I'm an email away on that.
Thank you very much. That's the best thing you can ever say. Thank you very much. Well, listen, it was a pleasure. Let me not take too much of your day, and have a good day. Thank you very much.
Ciao, my man.